So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be this boom of so many small companies out there. And think about consumers now. Black Mirror, I'm ready for it. And I see this as an opportunity more than being afraid of it.
Mhm.
I see this as an opportunity of selective people who truly believe in what they're building and telling a great story about it. And while building a product that actually tells the story itself.
Story. Welcome back to Flamcast, a space where we dive into everything mixed reality, marketing, AI, and the future of creating unforgettable brand experiences. We are very excited to welcome Apoorv Sharma, who's a marketing leader with over 2 decades of work experience. He has led marketing team with some of the global brands like Apple, Amazon, Flipkart, and most recently Allen as a chief marketing officer. As of today, Apoorv is an independent advisor and investor who's helping startups and founders to scale up their business with strategic guidance. Welcome to Flamcast, Apoorv. We have been planning this from such a long time. I'm really glad we are having this today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Apoorv, you had a remarkable career. You have led marketing teams across global brands like Apple, Amazon, and recently Allen. What made you to transition from a corporate role to being an independent advisor?
That's a great question. It was a very tough decision at my end as well. See, I've always been drawn towards inflection points in industries, be it the rise of e-commerce in
Mhm.
India with Flipkart or the advent of premium smartphone in Apple. So I picked up a lot of learnings along the way, and I felt that if my experience can be added as value to founders or startups or small companies who are looking to scale their brands,
Okay.
that can really make a huge difference for them. So I thought this is the right time to use my 2 decades of experience in helping others out.
Apart from being an independent advisor, you're also a program director at GrowthX. What is GrowthX?
The way I define GrowthX is I wish I had them 15 years back for myself.
Oh, okay.
It's a very special community. It's a great platform that the founders have built.
Okay.
With it's a combination of founders, marketing experts, people coming in together and sharing hardcore playbooks of growth versus general grant.
I see.
It's really a collection of knowledge that everybody can put together that allows somebody to follow a very structured framework to drive growth and revenue growth in the organizations or their own companies where they're operating.
I've recently seen on your LinkedIn that you have started your first program with GrowthX, which is Craft of Storytelling. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure, of course. See, storytelling is an art, and until now, it's always been observed as a very abstract form of art where people think that marketeers are supposed to do storytelling
Yeah,
through their own magic. You're a
absolutely.
marketer, so you would understand it as
Yeah.
well. But I call it the spine of the art. The craft of storytelling, what I've built with GrowthX, is a very structured framework on how do you build great stories that can help you scale or even progress ahead in your own career, no matter who you are. You could be a marketer, you could be an engineer, product manager, or even a revenue led sales growth guy.
Okay.
This can really help you sharpen that tool in your arsenal so that you can just tell better stories along the way.
I've seen that founders have been obsessed about performance marketing more than building a brand and positioning a narrative. How do you plan to teach them this art of storytelling?
Storytelling applies everywhere, especially in performance marketing. I can tell you firsthand. See, performance marketing, it can be the most powerful tool, or it can be the easiest tool you fall back on when you
Hmm.
don't know what else to do. Storytelling, the way I think about it is any performance marketing or a channel like that will give you short bursts.
Hmm.
But if you add a layer of story on top of what you're doing, and it has to get infused into even a perf marketing campaign, it gives you long term sustainable growth over time, even after you've stopped performance marketing campaigns.
Oh,
So,
okay.
campaigns have timestamps to it. Story has no shelf life. Stories lives on a lot longer than a campaign does.
Yeah, and it is more than a tagline
Yes,
and one campaign that you have done for the
right.
brand. It's
Stories
more
are what you
about,
remember.
yeah, it's about resonance.
Correct.
As an advisor, you have been talking to a lot of brands and startups. As per you, what are the key challenges the startups are facing today?
Short term thinking, that's the problem. And too much focus on profitability
Okay.
without really thinking about long term sustenance is what I would say. In the last 1 week alone, I've spoken to hundreds of people who've reached out to me on LinkedIn, and it's scary. There is a common thread. Everyone's very clear that they have to grow. They have to build something which is sustainable and
Hmm.
profitable,
Yeah.
but most of them don't know how. And it's interesting that a lot of people are falling back on, you mentioned performance marketing, a lot of people
Yeah.
are falling back on the traditional tried and tested channels without really thinking in deep on what they want to do, what they want to build, and what's the story that they want to put out there. And I see this as an opportunity more than being afraid of it.
Hmm.
I see this as an opportunity of selective people who truly believe in what they're building and telling a great story about it, and while building a product that actually tells the story itself.
Story. Okay.
So finding a right marriage between three people, not two here, which is a great product, a great story, and a great business model. That's the piece that I'm looking at and I'm trying to help people out with.
And that is a challenge most of the companies and the founders are
Yes.
facing today. So, what are your key consideration when you have to pick up your next project? Since you have 300, 300 requests already in your calendar, how will you pick and choose the project that you want to work with?
Yeah, I apply frameworks everywhere. So there's a framework for this as well. See, it's very simple. The three C's. One is conviction. I look at hardcore conviction in the person I'm speaking with. It could be somebody working at a place or having their own company. How convinced are they on what they're building, right? And
Hmm.
how convinced they that it's actually something different which doesn't exist out there. Number one. The number two is consistency. If they have been consistently delivering and showing and actually building a product that delivers onto what the story that they're building,
Hmm.
right? What they put out there when they started out with first. So if they're doing that consistently, then I'm
Hmm.
sure the product will end in a point which they initially had in mind to start out with. The third C is communication, which I bring in onto the table.
That is the
So
storytelling.
yes, so
Okay.
if they have some bit of understanding on what they want to say, right? Because ultimately it has to do about the product and their own story that they're putting in out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's third C I would bring into place. But these first two is what I would really look at filtering between two sets of people I'm talking with.
Okay. Is there any other criteria apart from these three C's that you apply while picking up the projects?
I think I look at multiple things,
Okay.
but I'm a big believer of product. I'm also a product guy, not just a marketing
Yeah,
person. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I am a big fan of product leading to great storytelling and not the
Got
other
it.
way around. So
Marketing lead it or sustaining an average product.
yeah, because that doesn't give you long term sustenance, right? It's just basically you'll see a spike, but things will fall down. I think ultimately your story has to marry with a great product, which leads to more stories coming out. It should be a
Absolutely.
cycle coming through like that. So I look at product differentiation, and just the simplicity of an experience. It is so crowded out there. Imagine if there are so many people like you and I who are thinking of starting our own businesses today.
Yeah.
How is it going to be in the next 5 years? People are not going to be doing jobs. I meet so many college grads in the last 1 week alone who are saying that, hey, you know what, Apoorv, I picked up my first job, but this is something I'm building on the side. And really cool stuff. It's not even just ordinary random ideas. There are kids building really, really amazing things. So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be this boom of so many small companies out there. And think about consumers now.
Yeah.
Consumers are going to be flooded with so many products and options for every small thing. Like when they want to wake up, smart alarm clock to this and that, they'll just be inundated with products around them. And the way the consumer will think then is like a baby. They will choose the most simplest thing that does the job for them without the added headache.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and which resonate with them also
Correct.
in a way.
Correct.
In the with the belief system, I think that has become one of the key parameters to choose a brand. If the brand is talking or resonating with your value system.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you need to put a user guide to your product,
Yeah.
that's a big friction point. So I also look at that. You need to explain how to use your product to a consumer because then you definitely, like, marketing can't solve that.
Yeah, marketing can't. Absolutely can't. Uh, you have been at both the side of the table. You have been a marketer, now you are an investor as well to these startups. How do you weigh, how much weight do you place on the marketing strategy in your investment thesis?
See, I've been an angel investor for some time now,
Okay.
and largely a marketer my entire career. But it's very interesting how you apply both ways of looking at things together. Classic way is a marketer will look at cost of time, right? So they'll, which is typically media,
Hmm.
that how much I have to pay to get a share of your time as a consumer.
Yeah,
But an investor will actually look at return on investment of time.
absolutely. Yeah.
So an investor will see that I'm okay to spend $2 or $10 for X amount or doing this, but what will I get in return?
Hmm.
And that lens, if you apply it together as a marketer, is very, very powerful because then you become a value based marketer and not a spike based marketer. You're thinking about, yes, and you're actually making very pragmatic decisions, which I actually myself didn't do it earlier in my career. Like, oh my God, this is going to be costing me so much, I might as well not do it. But an investor will say, that's okay if it costs so much, if it gives you 10x the growth in a shorter period of time that you would take to do it in 2 years,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
And I mean, as a CMO, I've dealt with investors all the time, and I've been on the side of the table going through loggerheads on these conversations.
Yeah.
But if you apply both mindsets, so that's really enriched me as a person and how I look at problems and how I look at decisions altogether.
Okay. How do you evaluate a company growth potential? Like you're a marketer and an investor also. So there are like the three C's that you spoke about. Uh, Growth potential is not only the product, is not only the roadmap or the GTM strategies. There's much more beyond that also. So how do you evaluate while having a discussion, the initial discussion with the companies?
Sure. So, fortunately, I'm not in the category of investors who has to do the entire due diligence myself.
Okay.
So, obviously, there are people much smarter than I am who are going to be doing this from an investment thesis perspective.
Okay.
I look at it as like a simple human being. One, is it a product I can use or not? Very, very simple.
Okay.
When
It's
I
a
say
very
I can use, I mean, at some point or stage in my life, it could be right now, it could be later. Can I relate to the usability of the product? Or does it just feel very, very far fetched? Like, for example, if I don't understand crypto, I will probably not invest in a company who's working on crypto because I don't know how it works, right? I do know how crypto works,
no,
just
no, I'm
FYI.
just
But the idea is, can I relate myself to the product? Number one. Now you spoke about market potential. See, beyond well structured investment thesis,
yeah.
a simple first principle way to look at it is that are there enough consumers who would be willing to pay for this product, right? And as an investor, you would want to tag along trends. So if, for example, electrification is a great trend that is happening right now, I would want to be a part of that story. So I would invest in a couple of companies who are growing in the EV space, who are growing out there. That's like any person who even thinks about investing in stocks. So an angel investor doesn't think very differently than a stock
That is
picker.
stock post. Okay.
Risk is much higher.
Of course.
I am an angel investor, early stage investor in a company called as Blue Smart. We all know the story, what happened behind
Yeah.
that. But when I was part of that narrative and the story was being built, all of us believed in it, right?
Yeah.
So the risk is very, very high. And out of 100 bets that you do, probably like three or four will do really, really well.
That
But
pays off
the
for all.
the philosophy, the way to evaluate it is very similar to a stock picker. Can I relate to this company? Can I see its brand in my or around my daily lives? And do I see the next, at least the next 10 years, this company to sustain with an audience base that might be willing to pay for it? Then everything else is incremental. You will look at, okay, the team. Is the team actually pushing hard on innovations? Is there another related category that the team can also expand products in? So those are the things that you also look at in terms of growth potential.
But there are a lot of products we never thought we will be using, like Reels,
Sure.
Instagram coming in. Which I'm just taking very
Yeah,
casual day-to-day examples, and influencer marketing becoming so big, which
sure.
has happened in 2016-17 onwards. We never saw that coming in 2010. It was not even a profession. So
Yes.
how do you gauge for those opportunities?
Yeah, which is the reference I made to the people much smarter than I am. See, as an insider, you can do it. Like if you ask me about potential spaces to invest in the marketing or the martech domain,
Hmm.
I probably am placed better than others to tell you what will work or what not will work.
Okay.
But as an investor, I would also want to invest in domains I'm not an expert in. In those cases, I would apply a simple PMF cutoff.
Okay.
If a company or a product or a service has found PMF, which means that product market fit, have they found
Absolutely.
a sizable audience who are using
Using
that
the
product
product.
right now, then only I would go in. Otherwise, I'm shooting in the blind and I'm not here to play laser tag.
Okay. Moving on, we have seen that marketing is evolving every day, and it has evolved so much in last 5 to 10 years. There's so many breakthrough that have come. Like I was talking about influencer marketing. Now the tech has come in picture. AI is coming, and mixed reality is another thing. And what we are building at Flam is a generative AI platform for brand experiences, immersive brand experiences. What do you think is the next Google moment for marketing?
See, it is going to be storytelling at the core of it, but storytelling for you, right? Consumers are going to be looking at two things. One is there a message which is relevant for me? I've also worked on the ad tech side during my time at Amazon,
Okay.
uh, part of the division called as native advertising. So I
Yeah.
actually have experiences where I have seen consumers preferring ads in terms of CTRs which are relevant in contextual to their own lives,
Okay.
right? So I can tell you that more and more
Hmm.
now, in general, the consumer will be out there only reacting to
Hmm.
immersive experiences which are built for them, right? Second
Okay.
thing that the consumer will want for is control on the narrative. So what tools like Flam do really, really well, and why brands and advertisers would want to work with them, is they give the control in the consumer's hands.
Yeah.
It's you who chooses to engage with the product. It is you who decides to either play a game or try something else.
Absolutely.
And we're in the age of AI, nothing better than now, where AI can help you define the experience which is right for you.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that is just one example. There are many others, and I'm a big believer of high tech technologies in advertising and brand building.
Okay.
And I think consumers will remember these experiences more than just a billboard or a print ad.
I've also seen that we have like deployed this experience for more than 100 brands in last 1 years, but it is still experimental. From your vantage point as a marketer and as an investor, how do you see MR transforming storytelling and across touch points and the communication to the end users?
Sure. So I'll give you that answer in two ways. One is how the consumer's life will be transformed, but also as a marketer, what are the things that you should and should not do,
Okay.
which many people miss out. See, the way I see MR and technologies like extended reality, virtual reality taking place, one, the tech layer is now starting to evolve. People had not adopted because of the hardware not being in place. I mean, India is a smartphone country.
Yeah.
Now we have smartphones capable enough and technology capable enough to actually give you a glitch free experience. It was just
Absolutely.
so broken before. I mean, MR is not new. MR has been around for 7 years. During my time at Apple, have worked with several developers on the iPad
Yeah.
who've done MR's use cases in education and learning and other spaces. So
Yeah.
it's a technology that's been around, but it's not built in a very user friendly way until now because of hardware as a layer coming into place,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Now, as a marketer, what can sustain? So the consumer adoption will rise, but it's also important for the business impact to come out. And as
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
marketer, what will really make a difference is if you have immersive storytelling at one hand,
Hmm.
don't leave out the follow up part out of it. For example, if you pick up a ad and a user engages with the ad, plays a little game, gets a few coins, great. They'll remember your brand, and I played some games and I got something out of it. But what's in it for the brand? And that's where the fun part starts. So
Hmm.
a marketeer can actually sustain that momentum, which I spoke about storytelling, by taking elements of that creative and allowing the user to create their own story later on, for example, or give a custom coupon code to that user which they can use to walk into a store or redeem on their own website, where they can continue their own storytelling in unique and immersive ways on the website itself.
Yeah.
Or in the storefront, when somebody walks in, they'll talk about, oh, you scored X amount of points on this game. This is what you can redeem out of it. So, as a marketer, if you're able to translate technology and immersive experiences into tangible business outcomes, that's where I think the consumers will also remember it and then talk to their friends about it.
Hmm.
and the marketers also see an ROI coming out of it.
I think this is a great consumer journey that you just spoke about. I think it will definitely draw tangible results for the business and will keep your consumer hooked for a very long time than just being one experience that you did and forget about it. Moving on, is there any sector, particular sector that you believe MR should be used and will break through if used in that particular sector?
Every sector, I believe. But I come from, in my last stint, from the
Hmm.
world of education, and I cannot stress enough in education how important can be. If you look at the core of what the problem MR or an immersive technology can solve for is trust building, right?
Hmm.
In an environment where the attention of the user is locked. See, as a marketer, that's the problem. Any media you give, including a performance ad, it might be running on your
Phone.
Instagram, but the user is actually looking at the match, Dhoni hitting a six on TV in parallel, and he's
Yeah,
completely missing the ad, right?
absolutely.
It is the attention lock that, as a marketer, you miss in every format. An immersive format allows you to capture and lock that user's attention in for, even if it's a fleeting few seconds. You have that user locked into you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as the user, you're able to engage with a brand and maybe even discover a brand which you had not experienced before or even heard of before. So you can actually experience what the brand feels like through the engagement through this immersive storytelling. And I think that combination of a user locked in and experiencing, it's like you lock in the user with a brand marketer in a closed room
Yeah.
and let them talk.
Yeah, and it's all sold out then. If you have to build a brand today, how would you integrate MR in your marketing strategy? Will it be one of things, or will it be a part of your marketing mix?
It really depends. I will probably also go out on a limb and say don't force anything. So that's something that I want to put out there since we are on this podcast.
Yeah.
Forcing a technology onto a user, and I've been there and I've done that, actually puts your user off. So blend it in into the most natural way when the timing is right, when you actually have a story to tell and an engagement to run with the user. But the way I would do it is, if I want my user along that stage in my brand where I have established a well established understanding of what my narrative and story it is, right? So for large companies, it probably makes sense. With startups and founders, it will make sense once you're clear who your ICP or your customer profile is,
Hmm.
what's the narrative that you're trying to build around them,
Hmm.
and then is the right time to put out there. And it can be one of many channels that you engage in. It could also be a way for you to pull in customers into, let's say, your stores or through your website, a
Okay.
way to redirect customers and come somewhere so that they get a flavor of what your brand looks and feels like without having to commit to a media.
In your recent program, Craft of Storytelling, are you covering a use of AI, mixed reality, as a part of it? Because that is also immersive storytelling. Not so much of building towards it, but yes, an immersive way that brands can tell stories.
See, we are covering the basic principles of storytelling and how you go about the various steps. It
Okay.
can be applied to MR, it can be applied to AI, it can be applied to anything and everything out there, including performance marketing. Once you know what to say, how to say is much, much easier. And that's the part which most people are finding it tough to crack, which is what we built in.
Wanted to understand, you have 2 decades of work experience. Now you're moving on as a independent advisor and an investor also. What keeps you motivated throughout the years to perform at such a high speed and at a high level?
Discomfort. See, I see my career in blocks of 3 or 5, and the way I say it is, um, every 3 years, I want to make myself uncomfortable. It could be in the same company, it could be in a different company, it could be in a different setup. But if you see my career, I have intentionally always pivoted myself again and again to make myself uncomfortable in an environment which I had no exposure to before. So, what keeps me motivated is lack of clarity on what's out there and being insanely curious all the time. I mean, I'm an engineer and a developer at the core, so I like to build. I like to go into places where I haven't been before, and that's something that I continuously push. And talking to so many founders right now, and I'm really enjoying that because I'm learning so much about what's out there, what people are building.
Hmm.
It's almost like seeing through a set of binoculars on what's there 5 years ahead, because those are the people who are starting to build right now.
Apoorv, you said that you have an engineering background and a coding background, and then you transition to marketing. How did that happen? It's very like it's not something that I've seen so frequently.
Yeah. So the best storytellers are the ones who have built something on their own, because only then you're passionate about it. It's like a baby, right? I mean, if you're a parent, you will understand this.
Yeah,
The best marketing person for your child is actually you,
yeah,
because you've seen them grow up step by step. You know what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are.
yeah.
So as a engineer and somebody who's a builder like myself, I will always put a lens of what went into making it. And if you ask me and my ex-colleagues, I would actually spend a lot more time with the product and engineering teams than I would do with my own marketing teams. Because until and unless I can beat my chest and talk about the product proudly, nobody else will. So before the customer, you should be the customer directly.
Okay, and that made you go from transition from engineering to marketing.
Yes, so I really enjoy unpacking complex technology and
Got it.
translating that into simple, adaptable human communications. That's something I enjoy and I'm good at. And if you see my career, I always place myself around roles which centered around disruptive technologies, which
Hmm.
had to be translated into simple
Absolutely, yeah,
form out there. So
yeah.
that's what I've enjoyed and I've built over time.
Finally, based on your journey with Apple, Amazon, Allen, and Flipkart, what is one piece of advice you would want to give to young professionals and investors, early investors as well?
More importantly, for young professionals, very important to listen. Very, very important.
To the consumer?
To the consumer, yes. A
Yeah.
lot of, I remember when I was young, I came out, my first posting from my B school, and I literally post MBA. You know, you have this swag that I'm a management trainee, and I'm much cooler than the other people out there in this company. And I had my new fresh set of clothes out there. I remember my manager pushed me out to a rural village that same day with my fresh set of clothes, in dust, in sweat, and he said, just go meet the villagers and understand what they want to do. And that was like the foundational way I thought from that day one of my first job after an MBA. So to youngsters, I really feel that you need to listen more and then craft stories.
Okay.
Only when you do the first step first. And when I say craft stories, don't craft ideas and campaigns. Even in my last role, I would tell my team that don't come to me with random sort of ideas. A story is where you're able to, once you know where you want to take consumer X to a destination Y, and what is the story that will get them there, then the narrative is what leads to ideas, and ideas
Yeah.
will feed into you achieving that goal over time. And everything has to be related to each other. So classic young blood would want to put in virality first. So I tell a lot of people, don't chase virality, chase the
Cheers.
right V, chase value.
Mm.
And if you can only chase if you go in deep and just understanding and listening to the consumer, it's very hard. A lot of companies do it in a structured way. They'll actually force you to sit in call centers and listen to calls
Yeah.
and other things. That can do it, but remember, call center people call you out of a need.
Yeah.
It could be a problem, it could be something that they want. The best joy you'll get is when you go out and speak to customers who don't need you,
Yeah.
and that's when they'll tell you the real need that's there inside their heart of what they want from the category and not the
Correct.
brand. Find out patterns
Hmm.
and then validate patterns to build that story that you want to take it out.
Yeah. Throughout your career, I'm sure you have seen more crisis in marketing. How did you handle that, and what reshape your approach to risk management?
Uh, Lots of crisis moments. I mean, my last role was probably the title should have been Chief Crisis Management Officer, then Assistant Chief Marketing Officer. It is important to hold fort through any situation and not react. If there's one thing that I've learned at Apple,
Hmm.
which I've applied in my role at Allen and everywhere else, is not react.
Oh,
Calm
okay.
down, always absorb what's happening, and don't forget the positioning and the tone of your brand. Very, very important. People People jump on the bandwagon of viral trends to react, right? If somebody's attacking a brand, they would want to react, release a statement, and things like that. Uh, Trust me when I say this, it's okay to not even react at all sometimes. I
Okay.
used to be scared of that many, many times in my career. Like, what will people think? What will people say? But in many times, it's important to accept your humility as a brand. If your brand positioning is that, then it is important when to react and when not to react. And when you do react, do it in the most brand tone way possible, which means that use the channels that you have developed over time. So the customers should be used to seeing you in a certain way in the place where they've been used to seeing you all this while. Don't do something new only at a crisis moment. That is not the time to try experiments. If you want to develop a way, like for example, many companies have started blogs to talk about what they're doing behind the scenes
Hmm.
because their categories, and we used to do that at Flipkart, our category of e-commerce was being attacked by external retailer associations and all the time.
Yeah.
We actually started a company blog where we would push out the good stuff that we're working on, the impact that we're making in the society because of the work that we're doing. So
Oh.
there are ways to build a brand and manage crises, and even before a crisis hits. If you're clear about your mission, your brand will come up and rise on top. And trust me, many times you will not even need to respond to crisis because your users and the
No one.
media will reflect back onto those narratives that you've already set out there.
Moving on to some lighter segment, which is a flam fire questions. I'm going
Oh,
to ask you a few questions. You can respond in a word or a line, whatever
sure.
suits you. What's one marketing trend that you think is overhyped right now?
I said this before, virality. I don't like that word. I've been in meetings where people would say, how do we make this viral? That's the first thing that they would start off with,
I
which most marketing teams can relate to right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Everyone
it's
can.
it's not virality, it's about longevity of
So no
anything.
hype, basically you go for sustenance.
Yes.
Okay. If you switch your career for a day, what job would you pick?
Oh, fun. I probably would be a commentator on a National Geographic animal show.
Oh.
I used to love doing that when I was small. Is put the TV on mute and voice out behind the animals as they were walking through the jungles.
Oh,
I think I can be a great wildlife documentary
you are.
narrator.
Since you're from Allen, if you could introduce one piece of technology into the classroom, what would it be?
Oh, that'll be cool. Virtual teachers, probably. I think that's
Nice.
due to happen sometime.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
But
It will come.
I
Yeah.
think virtual teachers, not just in terms of a screen, but I think immersive virtual teachers that can do wonders to I think the country because tier two, tier three is still much far behind than what we think it is,
Hmm.
and a great education takes people much farther ahead than any one of us could imagine.
In last 2 decades, you have seen it all. What one mistake marketers often make they should avoid?
They don't decide on output metrics from the start. A
Like the
lot.
objectives and the KPIs?
Yes. A
Okay.
lot of marketers will focus on input metrics
Hmm.
and not output metrics. And when I say output metrics, like for example, you could be making a video, but it doesn't have to be just views. It has to result into something else.
Yeah.
Um, and aligning that with business. I think it is important for marketers to be extremely close to business and product teams
Yes.
and speak the same language. If all three pods are speaking the same tone, it's a marriage made in heaven. And a marketer is typically evaluated on the fancy metrics, the vanity metrics. But I think it's a lot more about, for example, you could create a video to launch a new app,
Hmm.
which maybe doesn't even cross more than 1 million views. And
Correct.
that's a lot of views.
Hmm.
But when you actually measure the change in perception and positioning of the product of the company thanks to that launch, that is a more powerful metric than just the views of the video itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as a marketer, you can translate that into different channels. But I would say many marketers don't decide metrics, and even if they do decide on marketing metrics.
Absolutely. What's one thing that gets you excited about the future of mixed reality and marketing?
Blurring the lines between what's real and what's not. So
If
Black Mirror, I'm ready for it.
if you could use only one social media platform for the rest of your life, what would that be?
See, my personal favorite continues to be YouTube. I think nothing beats long form. And I say long form.
Yeah,
I'm actually not a big fan of shorts. I'm a
on
big
YouTube.
fan of long form content on YouTube. So I think that will still last very, very long. But I still feel there is room for a new social platform to come in and change the way we consume and build content. Now, there will be tools which will allow consumption a lot more easier. And
Okay.
I've spoken to a few founders and companies who are actually trying to solve the consumption problem, because while generation is in your control, consumption is limited with your time, your mental capacity. Human beings, we can't change who we are, right?
Yeah.
But if some social platform is able to change the way I'm able to consume a lot more, then I can generate a lot more and a lot more unique things in place.
Which brand do you think has the best marketing campaign so far?
I
If you have to pick one, I know it's
mean,
difficult.
yeah, it's very difficult because I'll say Apple, but see, Apple has clearly done some disruptive campaigns decades, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
Think Different campaign is something that is most people's favorite that I speak to. But I want to give a shout out to this brand called as Jindal Steel. I don't know if you saw their campaign, the Steel of India, which launched last year. Uh, what a stunning campaign! And the reason I want to call it out, because it is truly an Apple defining moment in a category which you would not care about, right? And if anybody has not seen the campaign, you should go out and see the film. The way they, it's a classic case study on storytelling.
Hmm.
How can they take the most inanimate object and make it alive, and make a normal user relate to it in their daily lives? And it's just beautifully crafted, and it's a classic example where they didn't just do a great stunning film, but also blew this campaign out of proportion through all of the media channels. And they didn't have to do that. So that's one of the best campaigns that I've seen in the last few years.
Few years. Okay. What's your go-to marketing tool or software that you cannot live without?
Keynote. I'm a Apple Keynote user, not a PowerPoint user, but there's you can barely tell a story without a deck. I'm That's something Apple has conditioned into me as a person. But I like to visualize, and even when I'm brainstorming about my own thoughts, my own ideas, I start literally with a keynote, putting structures together, puts thinking together.
You've spoken about Apple in so many answers. So I wanted to know, if you have to pick one key lesson that you have learned from Apple, what would that be?
Uh, we were actually taught that during our time there. It's simplify, simplify, simplify. It's very hard for anybody to do. Before you put something out there, how simple can you make it? And that's something that Apple has taught me, that even when you feel a piece of communication could be as simple as a headline,
Hmm.
there is always room to chop off unnecessary baggage. And
Okay.
which is what exactly we spoke about in the starting of this
Yes.
podcast, is if you're able to get rid of the baggage for your end consumer, the consumer will just fall in love with you, because they will feel like you're part of their family and not somebody who's come in with a huge jacket with things to sell.
And that absolutely has happened with Apple.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Apple and the creativity they put out.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Apoorv. It was
Sure.
really an insightful session. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for joining us at Flamcast. We have more such episodes coming up. Stay tuned.